What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. We are on episode 90, and we have plenty to talk about, such as the NCAA Volleyball transfer news. I have quite a bit of NCAA transfer news to go over. It's mainly going to be on the women's side, because I haven't heard much on the men's side. Which teams are staying at which school, and which teams are going to other schools, and which teams or which players are going to be playing beach, and which players are going to be playing indoors still. Also, we have a little bit of a recap of the NBA, the National Volleyball Association. They had an event that happened about a month ago that was smack dab in the middle of the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament, and that was in the crucial times of the NCAA Men's Volleyball Tournament, etc., etc. So I'll be recapping that. And also we've got some 3C2A men's volleyball talk, as Orange Coast College is the top seed of the Orange Empire Conference. But right behind them is Irvine Valley, which is the second seed. Can the Pirates pillage the competition, or will the Lasers lash out and surprise them? Also, we have some high school boys volleyball talk. Yes, the CIF Southern Section boys volleyball brackets have been released. Who's the favorite to win in Division 1? All that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on episode 90. I can't believe it's been 90 episodes since I've done Set Point. I can't believe I've gotten this far. I didn't think I'd get this far, honestly. But that's not the point. The point is we've got volleyball news, and even though the NCAA volleyball season is officially over and done with, I got a lot of volleyball to talk about. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball news. But first, we have a word from our sponsor. So our sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or playing to just stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow Southern California Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, and you can follow them on Instagram at SouthernCalifornia_Warriors. And if you go to the search bar on Facebook, just type in the word Southern, the word California, and then the word Warriors, and then poof, you're following them or liking them on Facebook. So thank you to Southern California Warriors for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And you can follow IE Sports Radio as a whole on Twitter at IE Sports Radio. And you can follow them on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. And on Facebook, if you type in the word IE, then the word sports, then the word radio, and you see a logo that has a black background and white letters, that's us. So that's how you can follow IE Sports Radio in many different ways. So now let's get on into the volleyball news. And there's actually quite a bit of transfer volleyball news. I'm actually only going to read off the ones all the way back from March 25th, because that's pretty much when the season was underway and whatnot. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball transfer news. So all the way back in March 26th, Nicole Drunick of Nebraska, who is a sophomore setter, entered the transfer portal with 3 years of eligibility remaining. So that's kind of big news, considering Nebraska always has a great team year in and year out, and who knows? Maybe she wants to go to a smaller school and whatnot. So there's that. And then Andrea Fuentes, an all-SEC center from Missouri, is in the transfer portal, as she's going to be using her eligibility for grad school at the end of the season. So she'll be back one more year, but she won't be playing for Missouri. Too bad for Missouri. And also, Micah Allison, a junior setter opposite from Illinois, will be graduating this spring, which is basically right now, and she will be moving on and using her last bit of eligibility as a grad student to pursue a beach career, which is cool. And then sophomore outside hitter from Missouri, Kenna Sauer, is in the transfer portal. This was reported on March 30th. Then we also have setter Elena, I'm going to butcher this name, Skylar, who is graduating early and is going to transfer as a grad student to grad school. So she won't be a part of Michigan State anymore. So there's that. And then San Jose junior setter Mamie Garrard has announced that she will be graduating early and she'll be transferring for grad school with 2 years of eligibility left. So that's pretty cool. And then Arizona State middle blocker Kennedy Boyd said she will be leaving Arizona State, and she has entered the transfer portal. This was reported on April 7th. And then Janasia Carr has entered the transfer portal from Seattle, as she is a middle blocker and she has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Then also in the transfer portal, we have Laura Depras, a junior setter from St. John's, as she entered the transfer portal on April 8th. Also, Emily Hollowell, a outside hitter from Illinois, plans to graduate and will use her 5th year for grad school, and she'll be heading elsewhere outside of Illinois. So, unfortunately, she is gone from there, but she'll be moving on. Now, let's get to one of the players that has found a home. So, Jada Gardner, who will be using her 5th year of eligibility because the NCAA announced that they will be granting athletes or volleyball players, if not all athletes, a 5th year of eligibility, as Jada Gardner will be transferring to Texas State from Maryland, as she is a middle blocker / opposite, and she will be a graduate student. Back to the transfers, we had Kenzie Korber in the transfer portal, as she will be transferring for grad school, and she will use her final year of eligibility elsewhere, as she is transferring from Utah. So that right there is huge news, considering Kenzie Korber was very pivotal for Utah. So the fact that she's in the transfer portal and that she's heading elsewhere is going to be huge no matter where she ends up, whether it's at UCLA, USC, Long Beach State, wherever. It's going to be huge wherever she goes. Anyway, so next up we have Sanaliu. I'm not going to pronounce this one correct. Sana Lauve, a libero from Wichita State, is in the transfer portal, as she was playing outside for the Shockers. So she's in the transfer portal. And next up we have Nevada senior Cassie McGill, who has entered the transfer portal, as she was second on the team for the Wolfpack this year in kills. So that's also kind of some key news right there as well. Also, Dariana Hollingsworth will be finishing up the remainder of her season at Missouri before transferring. So she is going to grad school, and then she'll be transferring to play one more year elsewhere. So Missouri's losing players left and right. So the Tigers might not be as good as they were this year. So just saying. And then also we had Shannon Scully of Pepperdine, as she will be using her 5th season of eligibility elsewhere, as she is transferring from Pepperdine. She was a huge part of Pepperdine's big season, as I believe she was second in kills, and she helped Pepperdine advance to the second round of the NCAA tournament. She was able to pass the ball well, and she was able to get kills for the Waves. She helped Pepperdine finish second in the West Coast Conference, which is one of their higher seed higher finishes in the conference. So it's quite huge right there. So wherever she's heading to, I'm excited for it. I'm all for it. Anyway, so Emily Holloway has transferred to Ball State. Remember when I talked about Emily Holloway? She is now transferred to Ball State from Illinois as a graduate student. She is a 6'3" outside/opposite hitter, and that's the news right there. And then in the portal we had Imana Ellis, as she is a 6-foot middle blocker from UA Pine Bluff, and she is searching for a new school. It doesn't say what grade is she in, so that's unfortunate right there, but it is what it is. And then we also had Bryn Carlson, a 6'4" outside hitter, transferring from Kansas State, and she is going to be transferring for grad school with 2 years of eligibility remaining. And that's huge right there, because 6'4" outside hitter is quite big, and no matter where she's going, that team is going to get better. So there's that. And Alyssa Alcantara is transferring from Colorado over to North Carolina State as a sophomore outside hitter. So she's going to use up her remaining eligibility with the Wolfpack in the ACC. North Carolina State didn't do all that great this year, so they need all the help they can get. And then the big news from this school came from Maryland's top scorer in program history, Erica Pritchard, as she'll be using her extra season of volleyball, and she'll be heading to grad school as she's transferring from Maryland. So whoever lands her is going to get so much better. And I have a feeling I know where she's at. You'll have to wait and see where she's going to end up. So elsewhere, we had Wichita State's Nicole Anderson, one of the top players for the Shockers, in the transfer portal as well. And then one player who didn't get to play volleyball because that school and the conference weren't allowed to play because unfortunate reasons from the conference, has transferred as well, as Mia Tuaniga, a setter/opposite, who is only a freshman at Long Beach State, has transferred to USC, aka the University of Southern California. So, for those of you that are wondering, Mia is the younger sister of Josh Tuaniga, and that's quite big for USC considering they still have Raquel Lazaro, but getting Mia Tuaniga is really huge for their program, just because she has not used up a year of eligibility, and she was one of the top players in California a few years ago. And she's also she also can play opposite as well. She can play the right side as well. So USC is getting better after their atrocious season this year. Ugh. Anyway, we also had Jaden Newsome, who transferred from Missouri as she transfers to Iowa State as a redshirt junior. She is a 6-foot setter, so again, Missouri's losing out on all of their best players, and who knows if they can actually make the NCAA tournament this year. Remember, they were the last 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, and I have gone on numerous rants on the Tigers this past season, so there's that. And then we also had Adana Rollins, who graduated in 2.5 years. That's pretty impressive. As she transferred from Minnesota, as I think she'll have 1 or 2 years left, depending on what happens with her. So there's that. And then another player has found a home at the University of Southern California, as Paige Hammonds, a 2-time SEC outside hitter, has transferred from Florida all the way to USC. So that is absolutely big right there, as she is a graduate student and she'll be helping out the Trojans in every way, shape, and form. And also from Florida, we have Haley Warner transferring from Florida, as she was an Arkansas native, she is an Arkansas native, and she was a top 25 recruit and an All-American coming out of high school. That's big news right there. And then Shelby Martin is another Kansas State player that is transferring, as she is a setter, and she'll be using up her extra year of eligibility as a grad student. So there's that right there. And then as for the player who I mentioned earlier, Kenzie Korber, she will not be going too far, as Kenzie Korber is transferred from Utah and is going to BYU. So the holy crossover right there, as Kenzie Korber will be putting on some navy blue, as Korber will be a member of BYU, the team that won the West Coast Conference and advanced to the Sweet 16. So that's huge right there. Back to players that are in the transfer portal, we had Kaylee Martin playing a 5th year of volleyball, but she is going to be playing at another school. Martin was the outside hitter for Illinois State, as she was a 3-time All-MVC selection. So that's quite big right there. And then Oklahoma outside hitter Gouet Dioff is transferring, and she was the AVCA Region Freshman of the Year, and she got all Big 12 honors. So quite the big loss for Oklahoma, who plays in a very stacked division. I'm sorry, not division, conference with Baylor and Texas. So Oklahoma's going to be struggling next year. I know it. I'm just saying. And then we had Gretchen Reinert, a graduate student and a defensive specialist, transfer from Santa Clara over to the rival of Santa Clara in BYU. So Reinert is basically hopping from Northern California all the way to BYU. So it's quite the bummer for the Broncos, but it's a huge pickup for BYU. We also had Sage Ka'aina Torres, who was this year's Pac-12 setter, or this year's setter for Utah, and she was an all Pac-12 selection, and she was also a South Region selection who was transferred from Utah. So Utah's losing players as well. And also in the transfer portal, we had middle blocker Tiana Omazic, who suffered an injury in the fall and is in the transfer portal. So, once again, Missouri's losing all their players. I don't see how Missouri is going to have another NCAA tournament run like they did this year. Like, they were lucky to have gotten the early jump against, South Dakota. I was very surprised to see South Dakota losing to Missouri in the first round, but that's just me. Anyway, now over to players that are on the move or that have found a new home. We have Nicole Shanahan, a middle blocker and who is a graduate student, transferring from Wisconsin over to Tennessee. That's a big pickup for Tennessee, as Tennessee was a the first 4 team out in this year's NCAA tournament, because remember, the NCAA tournament was limited to 48 teams as opposed to 64, and this is going to help out Tennessee quite a bit. So I don't know if Tennessee's hurting at the middle blocker position, but I do know this: that Tennessee team's going to be really good. Anyway, we also had, transferring from Missouri, Kenna Sauer, as she transferred to Texas Tech. She is a sophomore outside hitter / middle blocker. So Sauer has found herself a new home in the Big 12 with Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. And also, transferring from Florida is Paula Criame, as she is set to transfer for the fall season. So Florida's losing some players as well. And then Elena Skylar has transferred from Michigan State over to Arizona, as she went from Big 10 to Pac-12, as she is going to be the setter for the Wildcats, as she played 3 years as a Spartan, and she will have 2 seasons with Arizona, as she is a graduate student and she has 2 years of eligibility. So that's pretty cool right there. And then Alyssa Esk will be transferring from Illinois, and she'll be playing beach volleyball, so we'll see where she's at. And then Adana Rollins. Now, remember when I said Adana Rollins, I knew where Adana Rollins was going to be going to? Well, I found out. Adana Rollins is heading to Penn State. She went from Minnesota to Penn State, as she is going to be playing for the Nittany Lions, which is really cool. Penn State really struggled this year, as they had a lot of young players this year. They had mainly juniors, but with getting Adana Rollins and returning most of their junior class, this is going to be huge for them. And in addition to Rollins, Erica Pritchard transferred from Maryland to Penn State. So Penn State is really getting rich, and this is going to be a huge year for Penn State, especially with Wisconsin losing some of its players to graduation, as well as Nebraska. But you never know. Some of those players could take the 5th year of eligibility. Some of those players could just call it quits for their college career and move on to their pro career, or they could just call it quits overall. You never know. Anyway, also in the transfer portal is Florida's Riley Fisher. So she is in the transfer portal. And Holly Carlton transferred from Florida to LSU. So she's also crossing over SEC schools, as she is now a member of LSU, a team that looked promising, but they just couldn't pull out that big win. And Arkansas doesn't really count as a big win, so there's that. And she is a graduate student, and she's actually going to be playing beach volleyball. She's not playing indoor volleyball. She's going to be playing beach volleyball for LSU. So that makes more sense, considering LSU is a better beach team and whatnot. So anyway, Liz Reich will be transferring from Portland over to Auburn, a team that didn't really get to finish its season just because its athletic department opted out of all of its sports. That was the word I was thinking of. I was like, what's the word? They didn't quit. They just opted out. That's the word. So anyway, Liz Reich is going to Auburn, as she will be coached by Brent Crouch, the former USC coach. And she'll be going there as a 6'1" outside hitter and a graduate student. So there's that. Now this was the biggest transfer news right here. And I don't mean to sound super excited, but I would think it was a few days after they won the NCAA championship, Avery Skinner, the outside hitter from Kentucky, the senior outside hitter from Kentucky, said she was using her 5th year of eligibility and transferring from Kentucky. And where she is heading to is probably the biggest shocker of the year, as Avery Skinner transferred from the University of Kentucky over to Baylor. So basically, Avery Skinner is going to be seeing Texas twice a year. Absolutely madness. I was very surprised she actually did this, and I'm surprised she didn't take the last year of eligibility. So Kentucky's loss is Baylor's gain, and hopefully, for Baylor's sake, they do bring back Yasonia Presley, the 2019 AVCA Player of the Year. So there's that. So we also have McKenna Marshall transferring from San Francisco over to Gonzaga, as she is a junior outside hitter listed at 6'1". So she goes from Northern California over to Spokane, but she will be staying in the West Coast Conference. Next, we have Nicole Alford heading to the SEC, as she will transfer from Maryland over to Missouri. So I guess Missouri did get one good player, but it still kind of begs the question: can Missouri make it back to the NCAA tournament? I don't know. Anyway, speaking of Maryland, Sam Bergio is now in the transfer portal, or was in the transfer portal, as she is in grad school, and she led the Big Ten in digs. So unfortunately, Maryland is losing out on all their players, and that's not good. Anyway, back to Missouri, we had Dariana Hollingsworth transferring from Missouri over to North Florida, as she will be playing on North Florida's beach team, because North Florida has a decent beach team. They don't have the greatest beach team, but honestly, it's a good team. It's not the greatest team. I'm not going to judge, but she's going to be playing beach volleyball, which is cool. And she's going there as a graduate student, so there's that. And then also we had Megan Nealon transferring from Alabama and over to North Carolina, as she is going to be playing one more year for the Tar Heels. She is a graduate student, and she'll be heading to the ACC as opposed to staying in the SEC. Alabama had one of the rockiest years this year. Their only standout win was against Tennessee, which that actually prevented them from making the NCAA tournament and whatnot. So there's that. And then also from Denver, we have Macy Carabin, who's transferring from Denver, and she will be going to grad school. But again, she'll be transferring with 2 years of eligibility, as she was a 3-year starting libero. Actually, I don't know if she's got 2 years of eligibility left. I think she only has 1 year since she's a grad transfer, but we'll see. Anyway, back over to the SEC. Alabama's Carter Doris has transferred from Alabama, as she'll be heading to Coastal Carolina. Now that is huge right there, because Coastal Carolina missed out on making the NCAA tournament. They lost in the Sun Belt Conference Championship to Texas State in 5 sets. And you could also make the excuse that Annette Namath was hurt, as she tore her ACL, and she got injured in the second set, and she was having a big game. And I think, like I said, losing Namath really hurt Coastal Carolina's chances of making the NCAA tournament, and it sucks. Anyway, back over to the SEC, we have Bryn Carlson from Kansas State transferring to Missouri as a graduate student. Now that's huge right there. I've been bagging on Missouri, saying, oh, they're losing all their players, but they get Bryn Carlson, which is absolutely big, and I think they're going to be, they might have a chance. I don't think they're on the level of Florida and Kentucky, but with everything that's going on, there's still plenty of offseason left. Speaking of Kansas State, Drew Kuck has transferred from Kansas State, as she was the libero for the Wildcats. So Kansas State is losing their players left and right, but at least they still have Aaliyah Carter. Anyway, we have Oklahoma's Sana Dotson transferring to LSU, as she is only a sophomore, and she's a 6-foot outside hitter. So Sana Dotson has found a home in the SEC. So there's that. Then we also have Rebecca Rath transferring from Maryland over to Auburn. So she is a sophomore, and she's a 6-foot outside hitter. And that's huge right there, considering Maryland wasn't bad, but they just had some stiff competition. And then also it didn't help that Ohio State was on the rise as well. So Maryland's losing their players left and right as well. And then another transfer from Denver is Kalia Fobert, who I believe she is only a sophomore, and she is transferring for the fall, so she is moving from the Summit League over to elsewhere. Where she will be going, I don't know. Back to the Big Ten, we have Indiana's Cameron Malloy transferring to Wake Forest. So she went from Big Ten over to Indiana. So there's that right there. And then, like I said, we had Avery Skinner transferring from Kentucky to Baylor, which is the biggest news ever. I'm really shocked that she didn't take the 5th year of eligibility. Maybe she can't have any more years of eligibility at Kentucky, but could this kind of begs the question, could Maddie Skinner follow in her footsteps? Food for thought right there. Anyway, Savannah Davidson from New Mexico State has entered the transfer portal. This was reported on May 4th. And then on May 4th, we had former Kansas State player Abigail Archibong transferring to Arkansas. As some of y'all know, Arkansas was one of the was the first 4 teams out of the NCAA tournament, so there was that. And she is a redshirt sophomore, and apparently she played 3 seasons, but she is a redshirt sophomore, so she'll have 3 seasons remaining, if not 2, depending on what happens. And then Kansas State's Shelby Martin transferred from Kansas State and over to UCLA, which is huge right there. But this kind of makes me wonder, what's going to happen to all the other setters at UCLA? Doesn't UCLA have like 3 setters already? And none of them were seniors, so I don't know how Martin's going to be fitting into the fold of UCLA. So there's that. And then we have Edie Brewer, North Carolina A&T's All-American, transferring as well. So that's not good for North Carolina A&T, so there's that. And then we had Kate Georgiadis transferring from TCU and over to Houston. So she'll be staying in the big state of Texas, but she'll be transferring to Houston and whatnot. So there's that. And then we have Sarah Swanson transferring from TCU and over to Alabama, as she'll be playing for the Crimson Tide as a graduate student. Swanson is a 6'2" middle blocker, while Georgiadis is a 5'10" libero, and there's that right there. And then Mary Hinkle, one of the highly rated liberos in 2019, is transferring from UCLA. So there's that news right there. And then Taylor Roberts, the Florida State's libero, is transferring from Florida State to East Tennessee State. She is a junior, and she is 5'4", and she is a libero, or however you want to pronounce it. As we say hello to Marcus in the chat room, we also say hello to Larry B. and Adam Karnick, who popped in the chat room as I was doing my intro. Say hello to Marcus Losgreat, who just popped in. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate you. Definitely check out Marcus every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, with his show Gloves Off. So definitely check that out. Back to the NCAA volleyball transfers. We have Zoe Faki transferring from Pitt, as she is transferring to San Diego State. Faki is a 6'1" outside hitter, and she is a graduate student. So that's big right there, considering she wasn't the biggest pin hitter for Pitt, but she was instrumental in the Panthers' offense, along with Kayla Lunn and Chinazi Ndi. So there's that. And then Notre Dame libero Madison Cruzado is transferring after she opted out of the 2020-2021 season. So I didn't even know she was on the team, and I didn't even know she actually opted out. Like, Notre Dame returned so many players, I forgot this player was even on the team. I just saw Hattie Monson starting, and then she fit really well into that libero position. So there's that. So Madison Cruzado is in the transfer portal from Notre Dame to ? And then we have Lauren Clark of Penn State transferring from Penn State over to Florida Gulf Coast. She is a 6-foot outside hitter, and she's only a sophomore. So Clark is heading down south after playing up east. And then we have Savannah Davidson transferring from New Mexico State over to Oklahoma. She is a 5'10" outside hitter, and she is a graduate student. So Oklahoma's actually making up ground, except not really, because they're still in a very tough Big 12 conference. And then we have Claudia Dillon of Missouri transferring from Missouri. Like I said, Missouri is losing out on a lot of its players as they're transferring from Missouri and whatnot. And speaking of Missouri players that transferred, Andrea Fuentes, who was a 2-time All-SEC setter for Missouri, she has transferred to Wake Forest, so she went from SEC over to ACC. And then we also have Claire Jeter. I don't know if she's related to Derek Jeter. I highly doubt it. Anyway, we have Claire Jeter transferring from Texas A&M over to Arizona State. Texas A&M was another team I ranted on one time when they lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas. I think that was the most animated I've ever been, according to Adam Karnick, but I don't know. Anyway, we have Morgan Johnson transferring from BYU after 2 seasons with the Cougars. She didn't play that much, so she wasn't too pivotal. Then we have Megan Vernon transferring from Kansas State and over to Rutgers. She is a 6'2" middle blocker. She is a graduate student. And Claire Jeter is a freshman, I forgot to mention. And then Morgan Johnson is only a sophomore, so there's that. But Megan Vernon transferring from Kansas State to Rutgers kind of makes me wonder, why Rutgers? Is it where she was born, or I don't know. Because Kansas State has a way better team than Rutgers does. But who knows? Maybe Rutgers is building something. And then we have Pede McCall, who is a former Penn State player who transferred from Penn State over to UC Santa Barbara. She is a 5'7" sophomore libero, so that's big right there. And then Alana Waller from Northwestern is transferring, as she was the leader in blocks for the Wildcats. So that's a big bummer for Northwestern, because Northwestern is playing in the Big Ten Conference with all those very tough teams. And then back to the Pac-12, we have Sabrina Smith transferring from UCLA and transferring across 20 minutes from the campus over to USC, which is quite surprising. So Sabrina Smith is a 6'3" middle blocker, and she's a graduate student. So USC is starting to pick up some good players. Starting with Mia Tuaniga, then obviously with Sabrina Smith, and then with Paige Hammonds as well. So I don't know. I think USC might be in for a good little comeback season. So we'll see. And then we have Sierra Bartley, a former LMU player, transferring from Seattle over to, transferring from LMU over to Seattle. Bartley is a 6'2" opposite. She is a graduate student. And then Kennedy Warren, Idaho's outside hitter, is transferring from Idaho, and we don't know where she's going to. So there's that. And then this news came a couple days ago. Michaela, I'm going to mispronounce this one. Michaela Wunsch, who is a former Wichita State setter, is transferring to UConn. So there's that news right there. And then we have Stephanie Jana Wicks, who is transferring from Illinois State over to Utah as a 5'10" graduate student setter. So there's that news. And then the last bit of transfer news is, I think her name is pronounced Tommy Stockham, who led the Hoosiers in kills as a freshman, and she was the Nevada Gatorade Player of the Year. She is transferring from Indiana, and she is in the transfer portal as well. And then this news just trickled in as Nia Robinson, who earned 1,000 kills for Northwestern, is transferring to North Carolina. So there's all the transfer news right there. I didn't go all the way back from the beginning of the fall. I just went all the way back to the middle, toward the end of March, just because if so, then this would be a lot longer than it needs to be. But there is all of your NCAA women's volleyball transfer news right there. And that's pretty much all that's there for the NCAA volleyball transfer news. And Larry B says, "Let's go Smith, fight on." Hey, I think USC is in for a big season. I really think they can have a good year. This year was just so tough just because it was a COVID year and whatnot, and it was very tough for them. And they didn't even get their season started until the second week, where they lost one match to Oregon State and whatnot. So, but we'll see what happens. So, but Paige Hammonds, Sabrina Smith, and Mia Tuaniga are all USC Trojans, and I'm looking forward to it. And Marcus says he hopes so. I'm sure they will. I know USC is going to loses out on a few of their players. They lose Brooke Botkin to graduation and Candace Denny, and then they lose Sarah Elizabeth Nelson. But they have quite a bit of players that they return. I don't think a whole lot of their players are going anywhere. And if so, then Marcus, Larry, and I are probably going to be crying. Because looking at USC's roster, they had they had three seniors. So, two seniors and a graduate transfer. They return a lot of their players. next year. And then they've got another good recruiting class coming in. So the future looks bright for USC. I am 100% confident that USC will get back to glory. And also didn't help that USC had to deal with COVID throughout most of the season as well. So it even got to the point where they had to only suit up, I think it was like 7 or 8 players for one of their matches. And that was brutal right there. So, and then they also had to deal with injuries too. So I know Stanford had to deal with the same thing, but all we care about is USC because we want to see USC being successful again. Or at least me. We want them to be as successful as the beach team, which wound up winning the NCAA Women's Beach Volleyball Championship. So there's that. All right. So that's all the NCAA volleyball transfer news we have going on as of right now. If any more comes up, I will talk about that next week and beyond. So now let's jump over to some NVA action. Yes, NVA, not NBA, National Volleyball Association. This was basically, there was an event that happened on April 23rd, 24th, and 25th, which was basically smack dab in the middle of the NCAA volleyball seasons. It was when the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament was happening, and then the NCAA Men's Volleyball Regular Season Championships were not the regular season championships were wrapping up. The conference championships were wrapping up. And then beach volleyball was entering its climax of its season as well. So the NBA had a 3-day event, and there were teams that played that weekend. So we had the Los Angeles Blaze defeating the Chicago Untouchables in 5 sets, 25-18, 25-21, 16-25, 23-25, 15-12. Then we had the Las Vegas Ramblers defeating the Texas Tyrants in 3 sets, 25-18, 25-18, 25-16. And then we had Team Freedom of New York/New Jersey defeating the Dallas Tornadoes in 3 sets, 25-17, 25-10, and 25-19. Then we had probably the biggest shocker of the weekend, or that weekend, Southern Exposure of, I guess we can say they're from Florida, I want to say. They're most likely from Florida. They beat the Orange County Stunners in 3 sets, 25-23, 25-20, 25-22. Or as most people called it, the stunning of Orange County. So there was that right there. And then we had the Utah Stingers defeating the Ontario Matadors in 4 sets, 20-25, 25-20, 25-20, 25-14. And then we had the Las Vegas Ramblers defeating Southern Exposure in 4 sets, 24-26, 25-20, 17-25, 18-25. Which is kind of weird why they put those scores in that order. Let's reread those scores. 26-24, 20-25, 25-17, 25-18. The Las Vegas Ramblers defeated Southern Exposure. And then the Texas Tyrants defeated the Orange County Stunners in 4 sets, 23-25, 26-24, 30-28, and 25-19. Then we had Team Freedom of New Jersey/New York defeating the Chicago Untouchables in 4 sets, 25-22, 18-25, 25-18, and 25-18. Then we had the Utah Stingers defeating the Dallas Tornadoes in 3 sets, 25-15, 25-18, and 26-24. And then we also had the Ontario Matadors defeating the Los Angeles Blaze in the Battle of California in 4 sets, 25-20, 17-25, 25-23, 25-22. And then we had the Utah Stingers defeating the Texas Tyrants in straight sets, 25-21, 27-25, and 25-22. And then we had Team Freedom defeating the Orange County Stunners, which secured their perfect weekend, 25-23, 25-20, and 25-19. Orange County Stunners had a stunning weekend, not for the better. So I feel for Orange County, considering, first of all, that's kind of where I live, and second of all, I have friends on that team, one of which was Nick Amato, who was a former guest on Set Point as well. So there's that. Anyway, we had the Los Angeles Blaze defeating the Dallas Tornadoes in 4 sets. 22-25, 25-21, 25-21, 25-13. And then we had the Las Vegas Ramblers defeating the Dallas Untouchables in 3 sets. 29-27, 27-25, 28-26. And Larry says, wait, I don't know what he wants me to wait for. Yes, there is an association called the NVA, the National Volleyball Association. I didn't talk about this too much just because, again, there was a lot of NCAA volleyball going on, and I didn't want to go on and on and on and on, so there's that. So, and he says there's a team in the IE in Ontario. Yes, Ontario. And I looked it up, and they are from Ontario, California, so that's quite cool. Anyway, back to the events that happening. The last match that happened in this 3-day event was Southern Exposure defeating Ontario in 5 sets, 19-25, 26-24, 27-29, 25-21, 15-8. So those were all the matches that happened in that 3-day event. And I guess there was matches going on between the Las Vegas Ramblers and the Texas Tyrants and the Los Angeles Blaze and the Dallas Untouchables. All I can tell y'all is that it looks like the Untouchables, the Blaze, the Tyrants, and the Ramblers had themselves a big weekend. As I don't think this was like a little like event. It wasn't like a season that happened or a tournament, but there was like a little. What's the word I want to call it? Like touring, that's the word. So there's that. And also NVA was proud to announce 4 days ago its partnership with KT Tape, which has been used to help out volleyball athletes, whether they're playing beach volleyball or indoor volleyball. Ontario's name is the Ontario Matadors, and they are a team from Ontario and whatnot, and I'm pretty sure they are from Ontario, California, not Ontario elsewhere. Ontario, Canada, and whatnot. So, also because they had players from California as well, so there's that too. Regardless, that was pretty much that for all of the volleyball events, and it doesn't look like there was any other NVA volleyball matches that have been happening as of late. But now that NCAA volleyball season is over, I will be talking a lot about the NVA and any other NCAA college volleyball news. And Larry says, "Let's go Matadors." Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, the Matadors went 1-2 that weekend. That's okay though, because I don't think this was like an official like seasonal event. This was like a tour event. Like they went over to a spot and then they played at the Pierce Sports Center, which I believe that's in like Los Angeles. Let me just double check that because I want to see. Pierce Sports Center, that is located in San Bernardino. So there's that. So that's really cool right there. See, we're learning something every day and whatnot. So this is fun. Yeah, I really should start talking more NVA, but again, I will be able to do so considering NCAA volleyball action is done and over and done with, and now I'm very excited to talk some NVA action. I just wish there would be more matches on a consistent basis. And something else I didn't get to talk about was Athletes Unlimited, which it really sucks because I wish I could have talked more about that. But again, there was a lot happening in the NCAA vault. and whatnot. And yeah, it happened in the Inland Empire. So yeah, this is what happens when I talk about the NVA, and I do need it's been a while since I've talked about the NVA. That's for sure. Like it doesn't help that NCAA Volleyball, and then the NVA, and then Athletes Unlimited, and then NCAA Men's Volleyball, and NCAA Beach Volleyball got smacked into one. So there's that. So it sucks, but it is what it is, and I'm excited for it. And yeah, it says, yeah, Larry, to answer your question, they're from Rancho Cucamonga, and that's where they're located from. Rancho Cucamonga, California, 91730, and then whatnot. So they are pretty much from the Inland Empire, I want to say. So there's that. So there's that for NVA action, and they are, yes, California. Yeah, they are based on California and whatnot. So I'm 100% I'm 100% certain they are from the California area. So if not, then I want questions. So the NVA is and I talked about the NVA like a while back. I think it was like all the way back in like January, I want to say, before the NCAA women's volleyball season restarted, and they had like a little bit of a mini tournament, and the Las Vegas Ramblers wound up winning, and the Orange County Stunners finished second. And Nick Amato, a former guest on Set Point, was named to the all-tournament team and whatnot. So it was quite fun that the NVA had something going and whatnot. So I think it's a good thing, considering it gives college volleyball players a chance to like have an idea of what they want to do after college, because some players like to sign overseas, away from their home in like California or Hawaii or whatnot, where they could still be in the USA and play professionally and whatnot. And I think it's a smart decision. The same can be said for Athletes Unlimited, considering it gives women's volleyball players an extra option to play professionally as well. So the NVA is going to be talked about for a while whenever I get the chance to talk about it. And then there's also going to be Athletes Unlimited when that gets started up again. And I also got to give a little bit of a shout out to former Set Point guest Emily Eamon on providing coverage on Athletes Unlimited volleyball and whatnot. So she did a great job with the coverage. She was kind of like I want to say Doris Burke of the Athletes Unlimited. There were a lot of rules, though, so I don't think I would have been able to recap those rules and recap Athletes Unlimited in just one day. It would have been quite a while, so there's that. But, again, I'm really excited for professional volleyball, and it also gives athletes another option that isn't playing professionally in beach as well, because sometimes athletes just go to transfer over to beach, and then they play beach, and then they're hooked on beach, and they want to be a beach volleyball player. Well, they could also play indoor volleyball, and the same can be said for men as well. So I really think it's going to be fun times for collegiate volleyball players that are ending their college volleyball career and whatnot. So I think it's once I get like more of an understanding, and once there's like another event happening, I will be sure to lock into that and like provide updates on that, because this was just like a recap from almost a month ago. But again, it was smack dab in the middle of the NCAA tournament, and then NCAA men's volleyball tournaments, or NCAA men's volleyball conference tournaments were wrapping up, and then the beach volleyball was in its final week of the regular season and whatnot. So there's that. So I'm real excited for those two, and then I'm also excited for the AVP. I'm really... Larry says he's a Matadors fan now. Awesome. Great to know. I think there are a few players on that team that I know of. I'd have to double-check the roster, but I'm pretty sure I know at least one. But I am excited for their next match, which I don't know when their next match is going to be. Which I don't even know when the next NVA event is going to be, considering they haven't announced it yet. Which I wish they could announce it soon. I actually don't know any players from the Ontario Matadors. Sorry, y'all. But I do know someone from the Orange County Stunners. So once I get more news on the NVA, I'll be sure to report it all and then put it in for next episode. And it's going to be fun. And I like how there's 3 teams in California. There's the Los Angeles Blaze, there's the Orange County Stunners, and then there's the Ontario Matadors. So... Again, this just goes to show you that volleyball is growing all over the place. And it's not just growing in California. It's growing in regions like the Florida region or the Chicago region or the Dallas region or the Texas region. Heck, even Utah has a team. And then there's also Team Freedom with New Jersey. That's in the New Jersey/New York area. So this just goes to show you that volleyball is starting to grow at a rapid rate. And it's not going anywhere, just like this show. And Larry B says, iSports Radio is going to cover the NVA. This is awesome. Hey, I am all for that. Once I get the next event or whenever I see the NVA schedule, I will definitely send that over to you. And then, boom, we're going to have some NVA coverage and whatnot. And then they also have their own channel as well. So it's going to be fun. And I can't wait to see what other athletes sign over to the NVA. Because, again, Nick Amato, a former Set Point guest, is on the Orange County Stunners. Unfortunately, he hurt his foot, but he's no longer walking in a boot, so hopefully he has a full speedy recovery. He's currently the assistant coach for Corona Del Mar's boys volleyball team, and he's a great guy, so I hope he gets fully healed. He says he wants to set as well, so hopefully he does get that chance. He's a great guy overall. So there's that right there. So I think we're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk some 3C2A men's volleyball as the Orange Empire Conference regular season came to a close last week between Irvine Valley and Orange Coast. And I'm also going to be talking about the up-and-coming Orange Empire Conference tournament. And then I'll be talking a little high school boys volleyball as well. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of that sports. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy awesome. White tea. They are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with Set Point here on iSports Radio. You can check out all of our amazing shows, such as Gloves Off, featuring my boy Marcus Losgray, and Bases Loaded. Bases Loaded just had their show yesterday with Blake Henley, Brandon Buckingham, and Chris Garcia. And you can also check out all of our other amazing shows on many platforms, such as Spreaker, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podcast Addict, even YouTube, which I probably already said, but you get what I mean. Alright, so now it's time for a little story time with Teran. So, once upon a time, last summer, I had quite a good amount of guests. One of the guests, or two of the guests, happened to be coaches of the California Community College Athletic Association, also known as the 3C2A. Those coaches were named Travis Turner and Ryan Windish. Turner was the head coach of the Orange Coast College men's volleyball team, while Ryan Windish was the head coach of the Irvine Valley men's volleyball team. And both of those teams were bitter rivals, but the coaches were cool off the court, especially Turner and Windish, because those two were actually a part of the same club volleyball team. Well, club volleyball teams, as Travis was also helped out with Orange County Volleyball Club, but he was the head director of Balboa Bay Volleyball Club. So, what I'm trying to say is both of those coaches and their teams met last week, and boy howdy, it was a doozy of a matchup. Unfortunately, I couldn't really cover this on whatchamacallit, my Set Point account, but I was able to go in person. Special thank you to both coaches for allowing me to attend the match, and special thank you to the Irvine Valley College Athletic Director for allowing me to attend that match as well. So, the first matchup between Orange Coast and Irvine Valley did not disappoint, as this match was won by Orange Coast in 4 sets. Irvine Valley took the first set 25-22, which, while the score does dictate that it was very close, Irvine Valley was up by as many as 8. I think they were up by 7 or 8 at the most. I actually got to the game late because I couldn't find the gymnasium, but I had to use my nature instincts and listen as I heard cheering and hooting and hollering, and balls being slapped to the ground, and I had to just follow that noise. So that's why I call it my nature instincts, because I had to basically use my ears instead of using my eyes and using maps and whatnot. So there's that. Anyway, so the first set was won by Irvine Valley 25-22. Prior to that set, or prior to the next set, Irvine Valley did not even drop a set. This team was legit good. They were 6-0, and both teams were undefeated, with Orange Coast having dropped 1 set while Irvine Valley having dropped no sets. The second set was a different story, as Orange Coast started to get it going in the middle of the set as they took set number 2, 25-20. Like I said, it was close until the middle part of the second set, where Orange Coast started to string together points. And then the third set, Orange Coast took that third set 25-21. It was the same deal. They actually started to string together points toward the middle of the set. And then the fourth set, Irvine Valley got the early jump on Orange Coast, as they were leading for the most part of set number 4. And then Orange Coast started to make a comeback, and then it looked as if Irvine Valley was going to take the set. They led 24-22, and then Orange Coast managed to come back and turn it into a deuce game. And eventually, Orange Coast managed to win set number 4 by a score of 29-27, winning the match over Irvine Valley College. It was a great game between both those teams. Part of me won that match to go 5 sets, but the inner OCC fan in me was hoping OCC would just get the match over with. So it was a great match between both teams, though, as OCC was led by Calvin Sanborn, who had 21 kills. He's actually a Long Beach State signee, and he also chipped in 8 digs as well, so that is awesome sauce. And then we had Caden Satterfield chipping in 16 kills and 7 digs. He hit 520 on the night, so that was pretty good. Carter Depew had 9 kills. He had 10 digs, but he only hit 83, but that's all good in the hood. And then we also had... Where is he? Elgin Liu knocking down 6 kills. He hit 455 and whatnot, so that's how OCC was able to get the W over Irvine Valley. Eric Beebe had 30 assists, while my good buddy Sam Walton had 17 assists in Orange Coast's 6-2 offense. As for Irvine Valley, they were led by Colin Chillingworth, who had 18 kills, while Garrett Schnittger had 15 kills. JT Demore had 9 kills, and Trevor Weinert had 4 kills to lead the Irvine Valley College offense and whatnot. I'm trying to find out who was their assist guy. Andrew Perez was their guy that led them in assists, as he had 40 assists, which that basically means that he is the quarterback of the team, and he averaged 10 assists per set, so that's pretty cool right there. And then, for the team stats, we had Orange Coast hit 296 while holding Irvine Valley to a hitting percentage of 212, which is pretty impressive. And then both teams missed quite a bit of serves. IVC had 15 missed serves while OCC had 13. IVC had 7 service aces while OCC had 5. Now this is the stat that OCC dominated in digs. OCC had 50 digs compared to Irvine Valley's 29. When you're out digging a team like that, that's when you're doing something really good. And Orange Coast really outdid Irvine Valley defensively. As the old saying goes, offense wins games, defense wins championships. So there's that right there. And in terms of blocks, OCC had 11.5 blocks while IVC had 9 blocks. And there's that right there. And that is how OCC took the first match against Irvine Valley. Now, the second matchup was just as good, if not slightly better. So, in the first set, Orange Coast dominated that first set after they crossed the halfway mark. After they hit 15, that's when they started to string together points. 15 is kind of like their go time portion of the set, as normally the go time portion of the set is at 20, but Orange Coast has it at like 15. And once they start getting it going in the middle of the set, they never slow down, as OCC took the first set 25-18. The second set saw Irvine Valley sneaking out of that first set with a service ace, as they won that second set 29-27, paying Orange Coast back for a serve after taking that dramatic close fourth set. So the fact that Irvine Valley, I will say, is very gritty. They're a very young team, but they're very gritty, as they dodged multiple set points from Orange Coast, and they managed to capitalize on the points that mattered most in that set. And I also got to give it up to their libero. He serves pretty good. Like, Irvine Valley really struggled with serves, but when they serve inbounds and when they catch their opponent off guard, that's when they are somewhat at their best. So it's good stuff from Coach Ryan Windish. And he's going to have that team going in the near future. He's got something big going on. And then in set number 3, once again, Orange Coast pulled away from IVC toward the middle of the set, as they won set number 3 25-20. Then in set 4, IVC was ahead after they passed 15, and I was thinking, oh, this one's going to go 5. And then Ethan Newman, a defensive specialist, started serving really well. He was putting together a lot of serving runs as IVC just had no answer for his serve, and all I could tell you was that OCC's players on the bench were chanting Newman, 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 as Orange Coast was down 20. I think it was 20 to like 19, and then eventually they took the lead at 24-20 in set number. Or I think it was 23-20, and then OCC had match point, and then Troy Culp put down the kill, giving them the match, which was big for Orange Coast, because also Orange Coast clinched the number 1 seed of the Orange Empire Conference tournament, and also Orange Coast managed to win the Orange Empire Conference regular season championship in that same night as well. So there's that for Orange Coast, and honestly, that's how OCC became the outright Orange Empire Conference regular season champion, as Orange Coast is also the number 1 seed of the Orange Empire Conference tournament. That actually takes place in favor of the 3C2A tournament. I don't know if all sports are not going to have any 3C2A championships, but I know for sure that men's volleyball is not going to have any 3C2A championships in men's volleyball, which kind of sucks. But at least some of these teams are going to be getting a postseason. I don't know what happened with like the other schools, like Long Beach City, El Camino, Grossmont, San Diego Mesa, San Diego Miramar, and all those other schools. Like, did they just want to opt out, or were they just unable to like get their games going? Because I have not heard anything from those schools, which is a bummer. But at least the Orange Empire Conference is there to, give their players a chance to play. And I hope I don't hear any talks of whoever wins the Orange Empire Conference is basically getting a Mickey Mouse trophy, because that is important for players, considering they didn't get a freshman season or a sophomore season last year. So I hope I do not hear any talks of a Mickey Mouse title, just because if they didn't want to partake in it, why were they playing? Why didn't they opt out or sit out a year or whatnot? So I don't want to hear any of that Mickey Mouse talk. Anyway, back to the box score of the OCC-IVC men's volleyball matchup part 2. Orange Coast was led by Carter Depew, who had 19 kills. He hit .586, so in other words, he hit 50% of his kill attempts, which is absolutely amazing. Calvin Sanborn, Troy Culp, and Caden Satterfield each had 12 kills. Culp hit .588, while Sanborn and Satterfield didn't have the best night, but it was what it was. And then BB had 46 assists, while Sam Walton only had 2 assists. Orange Coast went with a 5-1 offense this time around, probably to throw off IVC, because they knew all about Orange Coast's offensive scheme and whatnot. So there's that. As for Irvine Valley, they were led by Colin Chillingworth, who had 10 kills, but he hit -135, which is not good. Irvine Valley also got kills from Garrett Schnitker and JT Demure, who each had 8 kills. Trevor Weinert also had 6 kills for the Lasers as well. As a team, Orange Coast hit .273 while holding Irvine Valley to only .183, which is pretty good. When you're holding them to that low of a hitting percentage, when you're holding any team to under 200 in men's volleyball, your defense is doing something really good. Whether it's blocking the ball or just forcing them to hit the ball out of bounds and whatnot. And I can't really fault both of these teams, just because both of these teams haven't really had any big time matches. They haven't been properly challenged. They haven't had that big matchup where they've struggled, but until then. So you can't really fault either team if they managed to make errors, considering this was both of these teams' big tests. And then Orange Coast obviously passed with flying colors. Orange Coast also had 9 service aces compared to IVC Irvine Valley's 3 service aces. Coast only missed 12 serves, while IVC missed 15, which is not a good ratio. And then Orange Coast had 56 digs compared to Irvine Valley's 28. That right there, again, it's very concerning that Orange Coast had that many digs compared to Irvine Valley. Well, if you're Irvine Valley, you have to be highly concerned, considering you got doubled up in terms of digs. That's huge right there. I didn't think that Orange Coast was going to have that many digs. But they had 56 of them digs, which is absolutely amazing. That's when you know Orange Coast's defense is on another level. Also, Orange Coast had 11 blocks, but IVC had 10 blocks, so there's that as well. So, honestly, Orange Coast really earned those wins. My thing for them is this. Now they turn their attention to the Orange Empire Conference semifinals. Orange Coast is the number 1 seed. Irvine Valley is the number 2 seed. Fullerton College is the number 3 seed. And then the 4 and 5 seed is Golden West College of Huntington Beach and Santiago Canyon out of Orange. Golden West and Santiago College face each other on Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. I want to say it's Tuesday. It could be Wednesday. Let me just double check really quick. Yeah, it's actually Wednesday. So it's a home game. It's at Santiago. It's home for Golden West, and Santiago Canyon is the away team. The winner of that matchup will face Orange Coast on Thursday. I do plan to go to that game. I'm just hoping I am allowed to, and who knows? Maybe I'll provide coverage via Set Point as well. So, I'm definitely finding new ways to keep the volleyball flow going. I definitely want to keep the show running, even though there's no NCAA volleyball going on. So there's that right there. Anyway, so that's that for the Orange Empire Conference. I'm really excited for this. I really think this isn't going to have the same competitive vibe as the Big West Conference or the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference or any of the other NCAA Men's Volleyball Conference tournaments that happened the past few weeks, but I think it's going to be great for the kids. The kids are getting some playing time, and the kids are getting those reps for when they have to transfer. And it's a great thing, considering those kids didn't get a chance to play last season. And then some of those high school kids didn't get a chance to have their senior year, which doesn't make up for the fact that they won't be able to get back that senior year. But they're also going to get some reps for when they want to play at a 4-year university when it comes to men's volleyball. So there's that. So that's that for the 3C2A in terms of men's volleyball. So now to wrap up, we have to talk some CIF Southern Section boys volleyball. And we're going to just... now, I'm only going to talk the Division I bracket just because, first and foremost, it's the smallest bracket of all 6 divisions. And second of all, it's got a lot of nationally ranked teams. So the CIF Southern Section Division I bracket was released this past Saturday. Well, all of its brackets were released this past Saturday. The Division I bracket was released, and it only had 8 teams, as opposed to 2019 when it had 16 teams. But I guess it was new back then. So the 8 through 1 seeds, I might as well just go through the seeds 8 through 1. So 8, 7, 6, and 5 are Redondo Union, the number 8 seed, Orange Lutheran, the number 7 seed, Mater Dei, the number 6 seed, and San Clemente, the number 5 seed. And then 4 through 1 is Newport Harbor at number 4, Corona Del Mar at number 3, Miracosta at number 2, and Loyola of Los Angeles at number 1. Loyola is the only undefeated team in the division, as they are 12-0. They didn't really get a chance to play all their matches, though, as their second matchup with Miracosta got canceled because one of the Miracosta players tested positive for COVID. And they also couldn't play against Newport Harbor a second time because Newport Harbor and Loyola were about ready to go. And then they got word from this Los Angeles County Health Department saying that they can't go because one of Miracosta's players tested positive for COVID, and Newport Harbor had played that team on Monday, so they said the match is a no-go. And it really sucked because all those Loyola parents traveled from Los Angeles to Newport Beach only to get that. And I felt really bad for them. A part of me wanted to buy them like pizza or buy them like a token of like something to like commemorate them at least coming down to Newport Beach. I felt bad for those Loyola parents. Like if the roles were reversed, I would have been pissed beyond a high heck because nothing would have sucked worse than traveling up the 405 or wherever you're going from Newport Beach all the way to Los Angeles just to find out a match got canceled. Like that is the biggest kick to the teeth right there. And they should at least Newport Harbor should have treated them to dinner or some sort of thing. But it's only Los Angeles. Like, there's a reason why the match was actually played at 4:30 instead of being played at like 5:30 or 6. Because if traffic gets really bad at like 5:30 or 6-ish, if not 7-ish, because everyone's getting off work and whatnot. So they had the match at 4:30 instead of having the match at like 5:30 or 6. And at least most of those players and all those parents got to get back to Los Angeles sooner rather than later. But still, I really hated that Newport Harbor and Loyola had their match postponed. And eventually it got canceled because they never got to make it up. So, as for the bracket itself, I think this bracket is very wide open. Like, obviously I know Loyola's going to beat Redondo, but Newport St. Clemente is kind of a toss-up. St. Clemente only has one loss, and that was courtesy of Newport Harbor. Newport Harbor has kind of been the surprise team, in my opinion. Not just because they're my alma mater, but I thought they were gonna be in somewhat of a little bit of a rebuild stage, but I thought they performed well. They passed the ball really well, and every coach and or player was complimentary of their passing. They were like, this team really passed the ball well. And they said, hey, you guys passed the effing ball really well. It's like, we appreciate that. So Newport Harbor is probably the dark horse to winning Division I. It sucks that their path is basically on the path of Loyola, but what can you do? They could have avoided this had they not dropped that fourth set against Corona Del Mar a couple of weeks ago in Battle of the Bay Part 2. But unfortunately, they dropped that fourth set, and it was just a catastrophe for the Sailors. But that's enough about that. Now, Corona Del Mar Mater Dei is an interesting matchup. So, Mater Dei had only played 17 matches this season. Of those 17 matches, they had won 15 in a row, but this past week, they lost 2 in a row. They lost to Orange Lutheran in their Trinity League finale, and then they lost to Redondo Union on Friday, which Redondo Union is a sneaky good team. So Mater Dei kind of got their wake-up call, and they better figure it out ASAP because they're facing a very talented Corona Del Mar team. Now, Corona Del Mar has also been an interesting team as well. Their season actually got off to a slow start because of COVID and whatnot, and they had to postpone a few matches. They even had to cancel their matchup against Loyola, which they always play Loyola at least one time every year. So it kind of sucks that their matchup with Loyola got canceled, but who knows? Maybe they'll see them in the finals. So Corona Del Mar tied for winning their league with Newport Harbor, and I really think that this CDM team is legit. My question is, can they take the next step? Last year's team was very deep for the Sea Kings, and unfortunately, COVID shut down everything, but they have a pretty good amount of players that they have this year. But can those players step up against a scrappy Mater Dei team? CDM does have the home court advantage, as the top 4 seeds did earn automatic home games, but the last time CDM was a 3 seed was 2019, where they actually lost to the 6 seed which was against Santa Barbara on their home floor. So, if anything, CDM has to be really careful against Mater Dei. Like, Mater Dei has some stud players, so we'll see what happens. And then the final matchup in the Division I bracket is Miracosta versus Orange Lutheran. Now, Orange Lutheran I saw this past week. They looked really good. They were really resilient against Mater Dei, and they really let them have it on the road. Like, the fact that Orange Lutheran was playing that game on the road and they still managed to win that one in 4 sets was absolutely amazing. And I think that speaks volumes for how far the Lancers have come. Now, Miracosta is going to be a far different story. Miracosta has a newly renovated gym, and they do bring back a majority of their players from last year. They did lose 8 players from last year, which all of them were Division I bound, but they do have a lot of returning players from last year. And I think that this Miracosta team is looking for a little bit of redemption after they were unable to win the CIF championship back in 2019. And if there's one word to describe Miracosta, it's unlucky. Like, Miracosta was number 1 throughout most of the season, and then, unfortunately for the Mustangs, they lost to Loyola, and then 2 days after, they lost to Newport Harbor. They played a Monday match with Newport Harbor after playing a Saturday match with Loyola, and then they also found out that one of their players tested positive for COVID, and their matchup against Loyola got eventually canceled. It got postponed, then canceled, and then, unfortunately, Miracosta was unable to get some good matchups. They did get to play Redondo Union, but Miracosta is miles ahead of Redondo Union. No offense to Redondo, but I just think Miracosta is on another level. Loyola is probably on the highest level all these other teams aren't, because they have Dylan Klein, who's committed to USC, which he has a freaking cannon for an arm, and I really think this is kind of Loyola's championship to lose. If they don't win this championship, I don't know what to say. The only way they don't win the CIF Southern Section Championship is if they run into Corona Del Mar, which kind of is their kryptonite. Or if they somehow lose to Newport Harbor in the semifinals. But Newport Harbor has to get to the semifinals first, which they do really well on their home floor to start off, which that could be their saving grace. But I don't know when the coin flips are for the semifinals. The first round of the boys volleyball Division I bracket doesn't start till next Wednesday, which is May 26th, though. So a lot of these teams have quite a bit of time left before their first round matchup. So that's quite interesting right there. So I'm excited for these Division I playoffs. I think the bracket is wide open, and I think that any team can win it depending on what team gets thrown out of the fray. So we'll see how it goes. So, and again, I really wish there could have been more than 8 teams, but I guess those were the 8 teams that were deemed worthy. I feel there were some other teams deemed worthy that are in Division II that should have been the Division I bracket, but hey, I'm not a member of the committee, so I can't judge fully. So that's going to do it for the high school boys volleyball portion of this show. And I know it's from California, and I hate how. And I you know what? Let's go over the let's find the rankings for high school boys volleyball, if I can find it. Let's find the national rankings for the high school boys volleyball matchup. Let's find out the national rankings. All right, so according to Max Preps, the number 1 team in the nation is Perry from Gilbert, which I can't imagine that. So I guess that's cool. And then I guess some school named Winter Park is from Florida is the number 2 team. The best California team in the national rankings is Torrey Pines, which I'm very surprised they're that high. And then also we have some of the top teams from California are Poway, Sage Creek of Carlsbad, Loyola of Los Angeles, and that's it. That's the only top 25 right there. Everyone else is either from like Arizona, Louisville, Indianapolis, Carmichael, which is not in California. Oh wait, it is Carmichael, California. That's probably like in NorCal or something. I actually don't know. Regardless, I see a lot of teams from like Cincinnati and then from Florida. So this could probably be the first year or the first time this decade that there won't be a national champion from California. But again, you have to put together everyone's body of work, and I don't think it says its last update was from May 14th, 2021. So there's that. But that's kind of it for the high school portion of the show, and that's going to do it for all of Set Point this week. I know there wasn't too many NCAA volleyball news, and I just pretty much just recapped the transfers and recapped the NVA, but there's still some volleyball all over the world. It's just found in lower levels. So there's that. But that's going to do it for Set Point this week. I appreciate y'all tuning in for episode 90 of Set Point. Again, I find it hard to believe that we're on episode 90. Holy shnikes. Regardless, I appreciate y'all taking time out of your day. Thank you to the chat room, being Larry B, Marcus Losgreat, and Adam Karnick for popping in. I appreciate y'all. Next week, we will have a show, and I can confirm that we will be having SoCal Supreme Sports Show this Friday. It may be early. It's most likely going to be later, but regardless, there will be SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I know I put it off last week, but there was just a lot going on. But we are going to be back with that, and then Set Point is still going to be going strong. And we might be getting guests back for Set Point in the up-and-coming weeks. Like, again, Set Point isn't really going anywhere until further notice. So there's that. And without any further delay, Larry B says, great show, Teran. He also says, go Matadors. I'm glad I turned you into an Ontario Matadors fan. So appreciate you tuning in, Larry. But without any further delay, it is that time, people, for me to drop the beat, as I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Once again, thank you all once again for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate taking your time out of your day to listening. Whether you're listening on the replay, I appreciate you. Whether you're listening live, I greatly appreciate you. Whether you're listening early in the morning, I really appreciate you. I just appreciate you tuning in to Set Point. And I appreciate the chat room for popping in. And I also want to give one more shout out to Southern California Warriors, the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio. We see y'all doing your thing. Keep doing your thing. And we appreciate you helping keep us the lights on. And we appreciate you, the listeners, for tuning in, because without you, we're nothing. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the week. I know I will. Catch yourself some volleyball, whether it's on the lower levels and whatnot. And I will see you on the other side. Peace, y'all.